Hi, my name is Beth Neal. I am here with some of my classmates for ATTR 713, which is Prevention and Outcomes. Like I said, my name is Beth Neal. I am a PhD student in the Curriculum and Instruction concentration at Indiana State University, taking DAT classes for my athletic training education concentration.
I'm Megan Feller. I am also, well, I'm in the same class as Beth. Yep.
Hi, my name is Nick Stassen. I am currently a first-year DAT student, and I'm also in the clinical outcomes class.
Hi, my name's Connor. I'm a first-year DAT student, and then I'm also enrolled in this ATTR 713 class.
My name's Shelby. I'm also a first-year DAT student enrolled in the ATTR 713 class.
Beth, I think you're trying to talk, but you're on mute.
Yep, you're right. I'm sorry. I was just saying we're going to get started today by talking about some of the opinions of outcome measures within athletic training. Have you guys ever used outcomes either as athletic training students, as clinicians?
I never have before. I have read about them. Currently, I don't actually use them. I know in my master's program at East Stroudsburg that my preceptors use them a lot, but I really didn't dive too much into that, only because I didn't really understand the connection between like reading about them, how to implement them, and then what to do with the information.
I've used them before in the physical therapy setting, which kind of made sense to me because we were dealing with an older patient population that was more concerned with getting back to their like daily living activities, like dressing themselves and cooking and, being able to move around the house and kind of assessing how well they could do that at the end of their time with us at the physical therapy clinic versus where they started at. But I think it would be kind of harder to relate that to athletes maybe.
I use them a little bit during my clinical rotations, especially the on-campus clinical rotations. So I got to see a lot of the second-year, first-year students using clinical outcome measures and not using clinical outcome measures. But I don't really understand fully how to tie in the information that I recorded into like where to go after that. It was more just gathering information, like using GROC and some of the scales and things along those lines, and then not really doing anything with it afterwards.
I haven't used them clinically. We talk a little bit about them in my undergrad, but the preceptors affiliated with my undergrad are more traditional athletic trainers, so they don't utilize outcome measures as much. But I did partake in a research project last summer that looked at how to correlate patient outcome measures to clinician findings. So I do have some background with it research-wise.
And I've used them in my clinical practice mainly with knees and shoulders, just probably for sake of ease. I probably should have done more of like some of the ones that you guys will learn that's like a real easy, just like pain scale one and different ones like that we're all going to learn about in class. I did have a question, Shelby, I believe it's you. So why did you not think, okay, so you said that you used outcomes in your PT clinic. Why did you think that they wouldn't work very well with an athletic population in what you've done so far?
I think athletes, they're not happy unless they're perfect a lot of the times, especially at the like college level or more elite athletes. So if they're not, performing at the same level that they were at before their injury or better, then I feel like they're going to be kind of looking down upon themselves and on their progress that they've made a little bit more so than somebody that's trying to work towards, a more like a less elite goal.
Has anyone else ever used outcomes kind of taking that, but in like a reverse. So I know you guys kind of varying between all of us, but like, so I've used them for athletes, like especially post-surgical, to kind of then motivate them the whole way through, that they could see, oh, I was at this number before, and now look how much I've improved. I'm now at this number. Has anyone else had that opportunity with an athlete before, or a patient, I should say, excuse me?
Yeah, I've definitely used that with G-Rock and just going back through the numbers that we've recorded. So, last week you were a 3 and now you're a 5. You're getting better here, like along the line. You just need, it keeps them motivated, I think. I do think that outcome measures are definitely viable in an athletic population. It just depends on the patient specifically. And I'm sure it may be difficult with all patients, but athletic population as a whole, I think it's definitely doable.
What's your guys' opinion? Do you think it helps or hinders clinical practice, and why?
I definitely think it helps. Anything that you have that can show qualitative and quantitative data as far as what you're doing with your patients is definitely a plus, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it can help for sure. If anything, just to see feedback on like what you're doing as a clinician, to see if the quality of care that you're providing is actually conducive to the whole patient, or if you're really just targeting the injury.
I think there's definitely a lot of benefit to it and how we can improve the healthcare we provide to our patients. But at the same time, I could just see with kind of knowing that athletic training as a healthcare profession is still in its infancy, and people have kind of gotten in the groove or the niche of doing like the things that have worked in the past. I could just see it being very difficult on the profession to try and implement new things into practice. Although I think in the long run it would benefit a lot and help push the profession forward.
I think to throw a devil's advocate at you, Connor, and like I don't know, like I love outcomes. I think they're great. I know it's hard, like working as a clinician, like it is hard to like, oh, remember to use them or things like that. But I think even though athletic training's so young, I don't know what you guys think, but we're trying to model ourselves for various reasons. After PT, OT, PA, we want to bill for our services. And I don't know that we can fully justify it without, whether it's outcomes or like we talked about a little bit of like the clinician rated outcomes of, are we getting specific numbers of range of motion, strength? Are we getting these intangible quantitative numbers? I personally think that I think it's going to hinder us if we don't use them.
I think it might be challenging to implement them just because how fast-paced athletic training is in comparison to physical therapy or occupational therapy, just because a lot of times we're doing our treatments or evaluations or, whatever we're doing with the athletes on the field, as opposed to being in the clinic where we have, kind of a place where we can slow down a little bit and take notes on what we're doing instead of having to watch everything that's happening at once.
I think that depends on the type of setting you're in. I know there's like Northwestern is transitioning more towards the medical model of athletic training, and I think in that kind of setting, it's definitely going to flourish having outcomes and utilizing outcomes in that setting.
Nick, were you on campus when the switch happened to scheduling?
I was with track and field last semester.
You want to talk a little bit about that and how that might have affected outcomes?
You know what? The thing is with the outcomes, I didn't see, there was only one person there who actually used outcomes, and he only used the 3 that I used as well. I kind of followed him knowing that I was trying to prepare myself for this. I didn't see a lot of outcomes, and personally I didn't like the medical model, although I think that would be the setting where outcomes would be most beneficial. I think with the time allotted for each patient, it seemed almost impersonal and rushed. And if there was a wait, or if someone was early, they had to wait, or if they couldn't schedule a time, they're out of luck, that kind of deal. It just felt really impersonal.
So I don't know if you guys caught on. ISU went to a scheduling system last year for on campus. And basically, like, patients would sign up for times to meet with one of the clinicians, rather than just the like, oh, I'm open from 1 to 5, just come in. So kind of changing the model. And I know there was talks to hopefully help some outcomes with that during that time.
Keeping on going with the medical model, I think that's really a great idea for a lot of schools to implement. I guess it might depend on the volume of athletes as well. I almost feel like kind of maybe an informal medical model, so to speak, just like kind of what Nick was saying about it can be impersonable if it's all about having a set amount of time per person. So kind of maybe blending the traditional athletic training setting or athletic training room and the medical model, I could see dipping toes into something like that could be beneficial just to see what the different options are.
So everyone was able to read the readings and watch the TED Talk for this week, right? Perfect. Did you guys feel that your opinions changed based off of those readings or not? Like positively, negatively, however?
Mine definitely did. I felt like I feel like I'm guilty for a lot of things. Like, oh, maybe I've probably done a little bit too much. Not necessarily just thinking about patient-centered outcomes, that I'm implementing them or not, but taking the focus off of the injury. Like, that's probably my biggest takeaway that I got from all of the readings, and really probably focusing my patient care more to the whole body approach, and really figuring out, and I mean, I would say for the last year, in my personal practice, I've looked a lot more at the mind-body connection and tried to see, okay, are all of your aspects of health in order? Like your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, and your spiritual health. Are all of those in order? Okay, how can I help you with those? But I know for sure that I've taken more of the let me help your physical well-being, and hopefully the other things will come along instead. So I think the ratings definitely, especially the one on the quality of life reading article, was a lot of, how do you define being better? Is it that because if we have a kid that had an ACL repair and the doctor is looking at, oh, well, your motion isn't back, so you're not better, when in reality, us as athletic trainers, if we watch that kid move back from an ACL tear and he might not have complete end range extension, but he can do everything better, why is he qualified as not being better? His quality of life as an athlete and then also as a human being is much better. So that kind of took it on a different approach than what I've really looked at before.
I think back one of the research articles made a point that because athletic training, we see these patients for a short period of time, we don't get to check up on them later on down the road to see how their overall well-being is. It makes outcomes seem less important, and we don't have a lot of research done on outcomes. And so I think we need to see more solid research done before we can convince the rest of the athletic training population to switch to outcomes.
I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways, so I've been trying to work, especially this past year, on like not saying like, oh, my ACL patient or, my ACL girl, but rather like, Jane who tore her ACL, because I think that, as Megan said, it kind of focuses on me taking care of the patient and me not just strictly like, what can I do to get this end range of motion back, but how is she total? And I think that the readings talked a lot about that, of like how that's going to help. And I think I felt guilty the most of like the one outcome that it said for a patient-centered outcome was like the clinician just goes, oh, or how are you feeling? And they say good, but really we didn't ask about X, Y, and Z. And then they feel like they were neglected, never got that total. So it's kind of on to what Megan was saying, but that really got me and was like, am I taking care of those athletes who they're not really hurt in my mind, but for some reason in their mind, they feel like they're hurt. Like, is that a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? Is it something with coach? Like getting more to the root of the problem and being able to connect more. Cause I feel like, you all know we're the first people they see. They know us before they're hurt. They know us after they're hurt. So I think it's hard to not brush some athletes off or patients off, excuse me. And so I think the use of proms will let them voice and be like, yeah, this is bothering me, or I can't do this, where I think we might forget to ask that when we're busy.
I think going through the readings and definitely the stuff with like Attr, QOL, and all of that, it definitely opens your eyes and just shows that, like, even though we're contracted to work with athletes or work in or through or with athletics, there's really a lot more to it. Like, they're an actual person, and there's a lot more outside of just the athletics that they can be impacted by with their injury or their disability or limitation. And so it could be a lot more than just seeing how they're doing with their return to play, but also return to daily activities as far as like getting to classes or doing things at home and things of that nature.
But where do you draw the line with something like that? If you get, a bunch of patients that are coming in because they trust you, which we want them to trust us, obviously, but to tell us about their, psychological, mental problems that they've been having with coping with whatever injury or ailment that they're suffering from, where do we draw the line in terms of where we're providing that care versus where we refer them to see a psychologist or a counselor or something like that?
I mean, in my mind, that's a very valid question. And I think depending on what outcome we're using, some of them have like specific benchmarks that it's like at this rate, and you can see the changes. So for me, I would feel like I think part of our job should be some psychological. But I don't know, I don't think there's like a cut and fast line in my mind. I think it's more of like where we feel like maybe they need to talk to a sports psychologist or a counselor on campus. I think it just kind of is very situational for me.
I would definitely agree with that. I think it can definitely be situational. And then I guess I've always kind of thought of it, at least how it's been taught to me and interpreted through undergraduate studies, is that athletic trainers, like working with a healthcare team, it can be situational, but then also depending on how your healthcare team wants to handle situations, as far as utilizing other resources, and then athletic trainers kind of being like that gatekeeper where we can handle a majority of things, but then knowing when it's time to bring the rest of the team off the bench and have them help out with some of those things as far as drawing the line or seeing where the gray between the black and white is.
I think there's still kind of a stigma of, sending someone to a counselor or a psychologist and, there's something wrong. So even if they're just dealing with some small issue, Beth, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Chu, but there's a lot of athletes that athletes have been referred to him, and their whole perception of, going and seeing a sports psychologist has changed. And I think that is something that needs to change, as well as what we're doing. We need to be involved psychologically for them to some point. But I also think that their perception of a sports psychologist or a counselor needs to be altered as well.
Do you think proms could help that? Or do you think that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think like showing them like, oh, this is where you're at today, and like this is where you're at like tomorrow or whatever, and like seeing the difference, like, hey, I can't help you anymore, in a much nicer way, but like, I can't help you anymore, but I know someone who can.
See, I'm not familiar enough with outcomes to say yes or no. I was actually going to ask you if you were familiar with like the SF-36, and if they had any, like the higher or health related quality of life survey, if they have like psychological components on there, because I've never seen or I haven't seen a form like that, and I didn't know if you had an experience with that or not.
I used the SF-36, but that was in the fall, I'll be honest with you. I cannot remember offhand if there was anything psychological on it or not. I think that one's available just on, like, that's free access. So that's an easy one we could just Google, because a lot of these ones aren't free access, so you have to pay for them. So, but I actually don't know offhand.
Okay.
I think also talking about kind of that stigma of referring for consultation or things like that, like it definitely, I think using BROMs to give like data to show the athletes, like look at the progress, but then also going back to like talking about how they get to know us so well early on, like prior to injuries and then during and after. I think if we're able to build that trust with our athletes, that can also help decrease that stigma. If we're recommending someone, then hopefully if they trust us enough, that'll kind of ease their conscience, knowing, okay, my athletic trainer, I trust them. They're probably sending me to someone that'll do a good job, and I don't have to worry about being in someone else's hands for this consultation.
Does anyone have anything else on the readings, on their experiences with proms, anything like that that they want to talk about before we go into the next part?
Yeah, kind of, Connor, going off of what you're saying. Yeah, I think that, well, actually, based on all of the discussion already, but I think just simply knowing our athletes, like, we're the ones that see them every day, that those patient-rated outcomes, I forget which reading it was, talked about, or maybe it was even for a different class, and it was like, oh, you might be able to guess what they're going to say, but you don't actually know until you ask them. And that ability to just simply say, okay, like, fill this out, and I need to keep all of you in check. And so I think by knowing them really well, we can maybe try to figure out what they're going to say, but I think too, we shouldn't have to be depending on patient-rated outcomes or those measures to figure out when we refer. That should be something that, just kind of out of experience, that us as quality healthcare professionals, we should be able to kind of determine when we reach that threshold of, this is out of my hands.
I think if we're still open up for discussions, I think one of the things that was mentioned on the assignment was kind of talking about, maybe, I think it was kind of leading towards preferences, either to patient-based or clinician-based. So I'd be curious to see what the group thoughts are on, from the readings and personal experiences, on whether or not one favored over the other, or kind of a blending of both together when providing healthcare to our patients.
I think they should both definitely be involved in some way. I don't think you need to go overboard with patient-rated outcomes, but I definitely think they should be incorporated along with clinician-rated outcomes.
Yeah, I think that they kind of measure two different things. Like, if you're looking at your clinician-based outcomes, I see that as kind of your own objective part of the evaluation. So I think that patient-rated outcome measures can fit more into, well, post-plan, but also in the subjective part of an evaluation. So I think, yeah, I agree, Nick. Those are both very important, and they're distinctively different.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I don't really have anything to add to that.
I think it's going to be interesting to see. Beth, you're a leg up on all of us as far as what is to come with outcomes and all these types of things. And we're dipping our toes and we're getting our feet wet. So I think it's going to be up to all of us to figure out that balance of patient-rated outcomes and when it's appropriate to use them and when it's not.
Okay, so we have to be on for like 10 more minutes. That sounds bad to say we have to be on. But Dr. Potter wanted us to kind of do, especially for you guys, like a get to know each other. So I'm sure you guys have looked at the Google slides, but there's a lot of people, so it's kind of hard to remember. So I don't know, kind of we were chatting at the beginning, so I think just have some chatting about, you know, where you're from, hobbies, interests, things like that. Is that cool with everybody?
Yeah. Beth, why don't you start off? Let us know where you're from, what you like.
Yeah. Okay. So I've had a really unique journey. I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. So Megan, you were the East Stroudsburg, right? Was that a nod? I hope so. So yeah. So I went to Mercyhurst University. Did my undergrad there. Came to ISU. Did my master's there. 2-year program. I started my PhD. I felt that I wanted to work clinically for a little bit, so I moved to Texas, worked clinically, and then all of a sudden this past year, Dr. E was like, hey, do you want to come teach again? And at first I was like, no, I want to keep working clinically, and then I was like, I miss the classroom really bad. And so I'm actually moving back to Terre Haute over the 4th to teach within the master's program there. So super excited about that. And it opens up a lot of doors. I'm really have started liking research and writing more research, which has come a long way from where I started. So yeah, I really like that. There's a bunch of places to hike out here, so I've been doing that. And so between that and water, so hopefully those of you who are coming to Terre Haute, I plan on going to the river a lot. It's not a great river, but it's there and we can float. So, and I'm a people person, so I really hope, especially those of you in town and those who aren't, on DAT weekends, I love getting together, just chilling and having a good time. So that's kind of who I am.
Well, I'll go next. I'm from Griffith, Indiana, which I know most of everyone has no idea where that is. It's a hop and a skip away from Gary, which is a little bit more familiar to some, and then it's another 20 minutes away from Chicago. I've been here for 5 years. I was a IT major my first year of undergrad, and then I switched to athletic training, and I've been in love ever since. I enjoy working out. I enjoy running with my dog, being active. Really enjoy being active, and I'm looking forward to what this has to offer me as far as opportunities afterwards. And I'm excited because Beth, you came from Texas, and I want to go to Texas after I'm done. I've seen pictures, never actually been, but I've seen pictures, and I've fallen in love with the area, with the terrain and all that. And I definitely somewhere where I want to go.
Which part of Texas?
I was looking at the Austin area.
Austin.
Yeah, I like the Austin area from what it looked like in pictures. I'm here. I've been in Terre Haute since I graduated. So if you guys are around, hit me up.
All right. So I grew up in Southeast.
We lose her.
If someone else wants to go, I think we lost her temporarily. If Megan can get back, we can let her go.
I'll go ahead and go next. So I'm originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana, up in the northeast region of the state. Moved down to Indianapolis for undergrad at UIndy. Just finished up there, and then I've kind of been bouncing back between Fort Wayne and Indy this summer, working camps and things like that in Indianapolis. And then I will be moving to Terre Haute around the middle of July. In my free time, I enjoy working out, playing basketball, golfing when I have time and money to spend on it. I also like to read. Kind of gotten into, it's kind of something that I picked up from one of my preceptors, but watching health-related videos or TED Talks and stuff like that on YouTube. So that's kind of something that I do every once in a while. I love to travel. I'm making a 2-week trip out of NATA convention, so hopefully I'll be able to balance all of that travel with the DAT homework the next 2 weeks. That's about it for me.
Where are you going in the 2 weeks?
I'll spend the weekend before NATA in Nashville visiting grandparents, and then I'll be in Houston the week of NATA. And then after convention ends, I have family in Houston that I'll stay with for 3 days. And then I'm going to go to Austin for 4 days and see my aunt and uncle, and then make the drive back up to Indiana, and I'll stop in Nashville once more and see my grandparents again.
Do you like Mexican food?
What?
Do you like Mexican food?
I do.
Okay, Torchy's Tacos. It's kind of a chain, but it started from a food truck. It's in the Austin area. Very, very good.
All right.
And then there's this place called Round Rock Donuts where the donuts are like humongous, but they're amazing. So I recommend
love and Mexican food, so I'll have to do both.
Nashville is one of my favorite places that I've been. I thought that was a pretty cool city. I'm originally from California, from the San Francisco area. I live about 30 minutes outside the city. I don't ever go into the city. I don't like big crowded places like that. Gives me kind of anxiety a little bit. Just how many people just don't care that they're walking through you instead of around you. I went to do my undergrad in southern Maine, in the Portland area of Maine. So I've actually driven across the country 5 times now, between going back and forth from my house and then to school and back, which is pretty cool. So I've actually been to 45 out of the 50 states, most of them from driving through. And I hope to get to the other 5 at some point, but we'll see. I grew up playing roller hockey and then transitioned to ice hockey in high school, so that's one of my big hobbies. I pretty much like playing any sport though, as long as I can move around and get some exercise, I'm happy with it. So I like riding my bike and stuff like that, outdoorsy stuff, hiking, things like that.
And Shelby, where are you working? Do you have a GA position? I don't remember.
Yeah, I have a GA position. I'll be at South Terre Haute High School.
I was at North when I was there, so it was good. So yeah, I really liked it, and I'm working PRN for them, so I'll float around all places.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I actually just graduated a month ago from my undergrad, so I haven't actually had the opportunity to work by myself yet, or really work. I'm not certified yet. I'm still waiting on that to go through, so I'm looking forward to getting my first real experience.
I'm in the same boat with you. You're just waiting for the results to come back.
I know I passed my exam. I'm waiting for the transcript and that kind of thing to go through. Did you just take yours?
Yeah, I took mine in May, the first day on the 27th, and I'm now waiting very anxiously for my results to come back. So, but you'll like South. I think North is a little bit better. Yeah, I know. I love Greg. Greg was awesome.
Oh, I was Jed.
Huh?
I was back in the Jed days.
Oh, Jed is awesome too. I love Jed.
He's great.
Yeah, Jed is cool. He's still around. Like, he still hangs out and does everything.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Connor, I had a question for you before I got cut off or crashed out. Were you aware, or did you know Ryan Rompola before you came down, or before you applied to the DAT?
I know him from Hit the Hill Day in 2016 when the convention was in Baltimore. I hung out with him during that, but before that, I think we might have met once or twice, maybe at IATA. But outside of athletic training and conventions, I don't know him formally.
Because I know he's from the Fort Wayne area as well. Fort Wayne or South Bend, one of the two. And then I know you know Clayton Hensley, correct?
Yep, I met him when I traveled with basketball down to Terre Haute.
You're with men's basketball, correct?
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Coach Lansing is a character. I'll let you form your own
Be
opinion.
nice before he gets here.
Yeah, I'll let him form his own opinions, but he's a character. Get ready for it.
I talked to Sean yesterday, so he gave me some of his insight as well.
Yeah, definitely utilize Sean as a resource. He's always willing to help you out at any time. So definitely keep that in mind.
Shelby, where are you living? Well, when you get to Terre Haute.
I'm living with Matt Rivera and Brian Betts.
Oh, the house. Have you seen the house?
Yeah, I have.
It's super cute.
Nice.
Yeah, the backyard's my favorite.
I was there at night, so I didn't actually see the backyard, but
Cool. Well, and let people know too, I'm moving up the 4th weekend, so if y'all are there, I don't mind helping. I'm babysitting this summer, so I'm not doing a ton. But I'll come help move boxes, do whatever.
I'll keep this in a small group. I was a professional mover for 2 years. So if you guys have any big furniture that you can't move, I can help you out.
Perfect. July 5th, Nick. No.
Okay. I mean, it's fine. If you really need help with something big, let me know.
I might. I don't know. Zach said depending on work, and then if Alex Van Dusen's in town, he offered.
He's in town. He's not doing anything.
Well, he might go on vacation that week.
He's not going on vacation.
You guys don't know them yet, but the alumni, okay, they're starting to like kind of leave, but alumni stay, which is great.
Great.
But
yeah, I'm actually using Alex as one of my I'm going to interview him for my EBP class.
Oh, cool. Cool. Okay, well, I look forward to meeting all you guys, getting to do things with you. I think it'll be good. And please let me know. I know I'm kind of in like this awkward, like, I mean, I'm fully in your class, but like I do know what's going on. So if you guys need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. I can even send you my number. We weren't on the list, but you have my email. My phone number's on that. So let me know if I can help you in any way or anything.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what I'll do, I'll stop this broadcast and then I'll explain what to do for the rest of it.